It's October 31st, friends. Happy Halloween. It is a great day in South Florida. I am live on the phone with my good friend Kevin 24/7. Say what's up, Kev.
What's going on, everybody? What's going on, Chris?
We hear you loud and clear. And Kevin, as you know, one of the things I like to do at the end of the month is share the most recent housing market data that's out there. Most of the stuff that's published by Realtor associations is always a month old. It's lagging, it's irrelevant, it's useless. Nobody cares, it's not helpful, but I've got access to what's happening right now in real time. And I like to share that because obviously I want everyone to have the most actionable information in order to make the best decisions for themselves, for their family, for their financial bottom lines. But I wanted to talk to you because there's a lot of stuff going on outside of the housing market that I think you and I can talk about at a pretty good level. And I think the viewers, I hope, will appreciate our conversation. But how are things by you? What are you seeing out there in the market today? In the world?
Yeah, I was going to say, man, I think I'm in a little bit of a bubble here. I think my area, my market's a little completely different than most. We have to sometimes step back and realize, we live in a little bit of a la la land here. But for the most part, I'm seeing what I predicted we would see. And I predicted this at the end of last year. And that is more of the same. Okay. And essentially that means more of the same in certain instances, seeing certain housing markets increase in value, others decrease, seeing mortgage rates increase as they were steadily, seeing people's income be affected in positive and negative ways, but essentially more of just that. So if you were doing good in 2020, 2021, 2022, then my prediction was you were going to do good in 2023. Odds are you're going to do good in 2024. But if you're not, then my prediction is you're probably going to continue to do far worse moving forward. And I just came across another story this morning of another company, another business going bankrupt. But at the same time, other news events and stories and headlines of people making ridiculous amounts of money, growing businesses, taking on new roles, mergers and acquisitions. My favorite, YouTube, is continuously on the rise, and it's just more of the same.
Yeah, well, one of the things, and I think the reason you and I connected as quickly and as deeply as we did, and why we're friends so fast, is that I think we're cut from the same cloth, right? So anytime I see weakness or fear or uncertainty or what other people would describe as a crash or an obstacle, I always look at that as an opportunity because I know that's where the golden nuggets are. So like, if the market crashes, great. If the market goes higher, great. If it doesn't really matter, I know that I'm going to be opportunistic. I know I'm going to be disciplined. I know I'm going to be prudent. And even if I had to start over, if everything I own was taken away today, I would earn it back tomorrow by learning a completely new skill set that I don't know right now.
More of the same. More of the same. Exactly what I'm talking about.
Yeah, I'd figure it out. And what I'm getting a lot of is a lot of people out there are not able to get out of their own way. It's not that they can't figure it out. They choose not to figure it out because they're stuck. Man. They're stuck in this victimized condition, and it makes me sick.
Bro, wait until you see the video I just recorded. You just said exactly, I think word for word what I just said on my video.
Well, so we see this on a day-to-day basis because we're both creators on YouTube, and we get a lot of feedback from comments and subscribers and viewers and stuff like that. I get people who reach out to me. And by the way, if you reach out to me and you give me a call and you think that I am plotting against you, just know that I want to go on the record right now and just say you have mental illness. You should not be on social media. You should not be. You can't handle forget about you can't handle the truth, Jack Nicholson. If you cannot handle whatever stress that social media induces for you, then for the love of God, get off the platform, disconnect, and go get some mental help. But no one out there, me, Kevin, or anybody else, is plotting against anybody. We're here to help serve, support, and empower everyone. And if you're getting that twisted in your mind, go to the hospital. You need medicine immediately.
Yeah, I would never say I was plotting against anybody, but I'm definitely plotting against, unnecessary financial hardship.
Well, I'm glad you brought that up. So today, right now, today, 62% of Americans live paycheck to paycheck, making it the main financial lifestyle choice amongst consumers. That's terrifying.
That's awful.
So people ask me all the time, when is the best time to buy? When is the market going to crash? When is the bad thing going to happen? And of course, nobody knows the answer to that question. But I can tell you one thing for certain: when 62% of America is living paycheck to paycheck, I know that there's going to be a collapse of an epic magnitude soon.
You know what, Chris? Look, question for you. What was the percentage 3 years ago?
Probably fairly close.
That's what I'm saying.
Probably fairly close, but
That's what I'm saying.
okay. So let's use that as an example. 3 years ago, it was fairly close. What's happened in the last 3 years? Inflation has gone through the roof. Everything
True.
else, the cost of living has gotten more expensive.
True.
And at some point, you can continue. Well, at some point, you can no longer continue to fund your lifestyle and make your minimum payments on the things that you think you want.
Well, you're absolutely right.
But you don't own those things. Let's just call it what it is. People think they own these things that they bought on credit. You don't own them. They own you. So wake up.
Chris, why is it so hard for people to accept that? But then if they could accept it, why is it so hard for them to say, you know what? I don't own these things. They own me. Why are we not seeing more bankruptcies?
Well, I'm absolutely tracking an uptick in bankruptcies that are happening throughout the country, throughout the state. It's not as bad as I thought it would be yet, but I'm certainly tracking it, and it's definitely going to get worse. There's no doubt about it. But it depends on what type of bankruptcy does not mean the same thing to everyone, and there are different types of bankruptcies, right? So the bigger you didn't ask this.
Why are people, to me, seem afraid of bankruptcy, and businesses almost look forward to it?
100% right. So when a major corporation has to restructure, obviously that's not what they want, but they can survive because they know how to play the game. And they've got money, they've got income, they've got revenues, they've got the ability to earn more money. When the consumer goes bankrupt, well, it's a much different thing. Now, what terrifies me about the possibility of bankruptcies for people today, and you mentioned that it really hasn't upticked much, well, they also haven't been collecting on student debt in years. And if they haven't started doing it yet, they're about to. So let's look at those 62% of Americans who are living paycheck to paycheck. I don't know how many of them have student debt, but I would suspect a lot of them do. And if they're living paycheck to paycheck now without making that payment, what do you think happens when they have to make that payment? They're in trouble.
Boy, oh boy. Chris, I got to say, this is one of the things I really do enjoy most about having this conversation with you, is the fact that not only are you in tune from a creative standpoint, but also in real estate, but your general knowledge of consumer finance, having been in the stock market or in trading and in investing, and for so long, it's just it's a total package.
Well, thank you for saying that. And actually, you know what? You just brought up a comment. Somebody had asked me recently to talk about the stock market, talk about investing, talk about what they should do right now. And one, I am no longer a financial advisor. I am not an analyst. I'm not a stockbroker. I can't give you financial advice. There's lots of things I'm not, so don't take any of this as financial advice, but it is something that you should be aware of. So what should you be doing now in the stock markets? Well, the first thing that I would do as a stockbroker when determining whether it is right for me to work with a client is determine whether they're an accredited investor. And if they're not an accredited investor, well, then they are likely not qualified for what I do in terms of speculative trading. But I don't suspect most of the people that are watching this content are accredited investors and tolerant and have the risk tolerance to be speculating in the market. So I'm not going to go into speculation right now, and I may do that in a different video, because for certain, when there's volatility in the market and there is weakness in sectors in the market, and it is obvious that there's going to be a lot of weakness in lots of sectors, there are definitely ways to trade around those sectors, both bull and bear strategies, and you can make money going up and going down and every way till Sunday. In fact, I think it's the most easy time to actually be able to trade profitably because there's so much volatility and things are very predictable. But the best advice I can give anybody, which again is not qualified, don't listen to it, is when people are asking me whether, how should they be investing right now, I also then ask them, well, if you can't afford to buy a house right now, and some of the people who have made these comments are people I've talked to before, and they don't qualify to buy a home right now with their personal financial situation. Why in God's name are you talking to me about investing in the stock market? Because you're not qualified. You're not qualified to do that either. You don't have the risk tolerance to lose money. So I would tell you, make sure you understand where you fit and what your risk profile is. But the non-sexy answer to this is the easiest way to invest and make the most return the biggest return you will ever receive in the history of the world is through starting investing early in a diversified ETF and dollar cost average into that for the rest of your life. So find a no load fund or find an ETF that has no fees, set it and forget it, and start early. And when I say start early, I started it for my kids when they were born. And each month, without ever seeing that money, it goes right into that account. And for the next 70 years or 60 years or whatever it's going to be, they're going to invest into a broad-based ETF, something similar to the S&P, and they're going to buy it throughout their entire life every month. And they're going to dollar cost average and bring down their cost and bring up their cost. And I don't give a shit where they buy this basket of stocks at all. It's irrelevant to me because the compound interest over their lifetime is going to be so staggering that when they actually need the money, it's not going to be hundreds of thousands of dollars. It's going to be millions of dollars just based on starting early and being disciplined. So the best advice I could give anybody in terms of investing is start early, figure out what you can afford to invest, and do it forever. Warren Buffett, the reason he is as rich as he is today, and he will even share this. Yes, he's made great investments. Yes, he's done lots of things, but I'm talking about the basic core foundation of his net worth is due to compound interest. The reason he is so, if you look at what he's earned on his compound interest, just from compound interest, from when he's 70 to 80, it is fucking mind blowing. It's billions of dollars. And why? Not because he was the Oracle of Omaha when he was 6, when he started, because he was smart and he understood compound interest. Albert Einstein called that the greatest miracle in the history of investing. And I might have got that quote wrong, but that's the truth. That's what it is. Start early, start often, and don't stop ever, especially when the market is on sale. That's when you find the great deep discounts. I went off on a rant there, sir. So.
Nah, man, it's like, honestly, you remind me, you're like my own personal Patrick Bet David that I get to talk to every day. And it's almost like I've seen some of his videos. I'm like, yo, I've already heard Chris tell me this. We've had these conversations, and then I see Valuetainment. It's like, and even I've seen it on some of your videos too. So I wonder if he's watching your content.
Well, the dead giveaway will be if he starts using the word volatility often, then I'll know for certain that somebody's watching my content because I don't hear people using that term often enough. But they talk about the crash, they talk about the collapse, they talk about all the fear mongering or fear porn that could be out there. I don't believe there's anything such thing as fear. You should not be afraid of anything. You should be prepared for what's going to likely happen. But if you are prepared, well, then there's nothing to be scared about. You're ready. And my hope is that I get everybody prepared and ready. And if they've got questions or concerns, they can reach out to me. But make no mistake, volatility is 1000% coming. We're just starting to see volatility. And I mean across the board, in the economy, in the world, geopolitically, all over the place. And wait till the election, because if you think we've got volatility now, it's we're in for a shit show. But I also noticed this, which is this is just out today. And
I don't want to cut you off, but I thought you were going to say, I'll know he's watching my content when he starts dressing up as Albino Kin.
If anybody dresses up as Albino Kin, then we're going to collaborate on a video real soon. But yeah, well, my kids are fired up about that. They're excited to see me make a fool of myself in the neighborhood when we go trick or treating.
Oh boy!
And listen, when you dress up like that, you got to sell it. So like, I'm going up to everybody. I'm introducing myself. Hello, I'm Albino Kin. Where's my dom? And then I ask them if they've seen my Barbie.
Oh my God!
What do you got? What do you got on the agenda for Halloween today? Anything?
We're gonna go out. We're gonna do a thing. I feel like you a little bit because it's freezing here, and I thought we were gonna have a really enjoyable night out, but it's like 60 something degrees, so it's like,
oh my God, I'm praying for you and your family. The Arctic winter has set in, and everyone knows that this global warming is a scam. So, oh wait a second. Obviously you're freezing to death, but where exactly are you located?
We are in the Northwest Panhandle.
You're close to the beach, right?
I mean, I could probably walk to the beach in like 5 minutes.
Sweet mother of Jesus, I'm praying for you even more. Do you know that at some point you will likely be underwater?
You know, I feared that, so I went and bought some scuba gear. I got some flippers. I got the wings. I got the little floaty wings. So I think we're good.
Kevin, if you don't dress up like that tonight, you are really selling yourself short. That could be it. Well, I know that your wife and daughter are both mermaids, so they'll be fine. But you, my friend, are probably screwed if you're not wearing water wings.
No, and you're absolutely right. And the odds are it's probably by design because obviously black people are not wanted here. So.
Well, it's funny that you mentioned that because everyone knows that I'm black with white freckles. And when I came to visit you, I could definitely see people looking at me a little bit differently. I felt the inherent racism that must be there. In fact, we went to that really nice breakfast place, and when I didn't order fried chicken, the lady gave me a look, and I was very upset about that. So I don't know. I'm not one to play the race card, but unbelievable what goes on.
It's the subtle undertones is really what gets you, you know?
That's right. That's right. Well, so let's keep this to the point. I know you got to go here. One last thing. I talked a lot about, in fact, I did a video a year ago called the liquidity crisis will crush the housing market or some derivative of that. And I talked about zombie firms. I talked about institutions which would not be able to refinance and would not be able to service their debt, and that there were lots of zombie corporations that are out there that are going to die, and nobody's talking about it. And today, what do I see? Zombie firms are filing for bankruptcy as the Fed commits to higher rates. Now, you mentioned you think PBD may be looking at my content. I don't know if that's true or not. I sure hope so because I love his content and I'd love to collab with him. But I haven't heard anybody talking about zombie firms, zombie banks, zombie balance sheets. And I mentioned it a year ago. It's predictable. There are lots of major corporations, major institutions that do, when zombie means that they do not have the capital to stay in business and they require more funding. Well, when interest rates are higher for longer, they can't refinance into a more favorable rate. They're fucked and they're going to file for bankruptcy. Well, if you file for bankruptcy, what happens? Most of your debts are discharged, unless you've got student loans, and they will haunt you forever. So happy Halloween. You will have the ghost of student debt that will spook and terrify and haunt you forever. But if a zombie bank does it, or a zombie firm does it, or whatever does it, they restructure, they may just sell. They have lots of other options that are much more palatable other than going completely bust. But when they do go bust, there's something else that happens. Unemployment happens because although they may on paper stay quote unquote solvent and figure it out, they will reduce their employee count significantly if they are able to stay in business. And this is just another leading indicator, another predictable thing that I called a year ago when they started the tightening cycle. These things are happening and they're happening in real time. And if you don't know they're happening, then you got your head up your ass because I've been sharing about it for a long time and I'm not the only one. Kevin's been talking about it too. His wife, Michelle, Squirrel Tribe 2.0 has been talking about these things too. Ron Yates, you got to check him out on YouTube. He's been talking about it too. And there's a handful of others that also share the truth, but most of them share 80% of the truth, and then 20% of an upsell into some bullshit course that's never going to help you ever solve any problem other than pay them and keep them out of bankruptcy. So before you buy anything, check the source.
If you want to know how to invest in crypto, then the first thing you need to do is send somebody $1,500 so that they can tell you how to invest in crypto.
That's right. The secret to investing, or the secret to everything, is send me 10 grand right away, and I will then share all the secrets immediately. But once you've done that, I'm then going to share that the next secret or secrets is an upsell in the next course, which is the next secret. But at the end of the day, the only secret here is it's me ringing the register all day long, cha-ching, 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 while everyone else and the economy fails and the market burns to hell. And I don't want that.
You know, it's crazy because I was told, you try not to tell people things that are wrong, that they can't fix in a relatively short period of time. And the time frame that was given to me was 3 minutes. So if you see somebody out and about and they have a white shirt on or, a white dress on or whatever, and there's a stain on it and they can't see it because it's on the back of them or something, don't say anything, because odds are they have no way of fixing that in a relatively short period of time. I think this also applies to what's happening right now in real time. And people are being told about these problems, but they can't fix them in relatively short periods of time. Therefore, they want to pretend like these problems don't exist.
Well, that's 100%.
Or at least these problems won't affect them.
So what you just described, I'm going to say a little bit differently. It's the Ostrich Syndrome, right? So my experience has been that most people have an idea or a suspicion that they are in financial trouble, and they don't want to acknowledge it. They don't want to admit it. So they bury their heads in the sand. And they say that bankruptcy doesn't happen, or it feels like it happens very slow and then all at once. Well, that's this ostrich effect that I'm talking about. And right now in my market, there's not a lot of supply of homes. There just simply isn't a lot of inventory. And that doesn't mean homes aren't selling. I just listed one last week and we had 3 offers and we ended up getting over ask and all the things. But a year ago, there would have been 30 contracts and we would have got much more. But when everyone who is Ostrich Syndrome, who's burying their head in the sand and they're not paying attention to the fact that they can't afford their lease on their car or anything they finance or make the minimum payments, or they've just, all of their debt is eating their equity and they're in real financial trouble. And I did a video about that, as you know, like what to do if you get a bank notice for foreclosure, which you should check out. But most people, when they get those notices, what do? They throw them out. They ignore them. They pretend they don't exist. And they'll do that for a long period of time. When the pain and the fear and the panic and the reality of what's actually happening hits them, it's going to be a game changer. And it's not just because if it happens to one person, it's going to happen to everybody right around the same time. So it goes from one day, there's no homes on the market, to the next day, there's 100 homes on the market. And when that happens, if you need to sell and you need equity, you're fucked. There is none, because now the market conditions have changed. So the worst strategy is to do what Kevin just described. You don't ignore the problem. You control what you can control. Control the controllables is one of my mantras. So if you have a financial challenge, the first thing you do is call the lender. You negotiate a deal. You figure out a different payment plan. You do something, but you don't sit there and bury your head in the sand, because a lot of times these folks will work with you. Not all the time. You may have to downsize your life. Your ego may need to take it in the chin for a second, and you may have to restructure. A corporation can restructure its debt while you can restructure your lifestyle. And although that might not be what you want to do, it's called survival. And right now in volatility season, there's a lot of folks that are not going to survive unless they take a hard look at where they're at right now. And being that it's Halloween and everybody's spooky, it's a good topic. Don't be freaking spooky. Don't be spooked. Look at your financials. Look at your balance sheet. Understand your financial position. And if you're at risk, take action, appropriate action. If you need help with that, again, I'm not a CPA, but I certainly know plenty of all-star CPAs. If you need help with any of this, reach out to me. You can reach out to Kevin. We're all connected. We all know all-star professionals in every space. Please reach out. We will connect you with somebody who can help you untangle that mess. And it will be a mess. But
Chris, oftentimes I think that you'll never get the answer to the question you don't ask. But with that being said, I've also realized that a lot of people don't know what they don't know. Therefore, they don't even know the right questions to ask, to approach their lender, their creditor, to ask these questions that you and I take for granted. You see what I'm saying?
I do see what you're saying. And unfortunately, not knowing the law is not not knowing is not a good response when you're in bankruptcy court. Nobody cares.
But I think people like you and I, we seek to know more, to increase our knowledge, to not only understand better, potentially help other people, but to improve our strategic positions no matter what. You know, we are not sitting here consuming all of this garbage content and wasteful time wasters, basically, and we are actively pursuing strategic possibilities of increased success and continuously preparing ourselves for what's happening now and what's likely to happen tomorrow.
Well, 100%. And you and I are essentially unicorns, and I know we're not the only ones out there, but let me just role play real quick what I would do if I was somebody out there who was oblivious to what's going on and don't even know that they may be at risk, they may not. They're just living in what do they say? Ignorance is bliss. Well, maybe you're just ignorantly bliss right now. You don't know what you don't know, but you're listening to this and you say, what's the right question to ask? Here's what I would do. I would call a bank that you do business with, and I'm assuming that you have a bank. If you don't, well then I actually then don't know how to help you, but I would speak to a financial advisor and I would say, hello, Bob, my name is Chris, and I think I could potentially be at risk, but I don't know. Can you please review my financials with me? Can you do an analysis of my financial life, please? And they will say, abso-freaking-lutely, because that's the job they do. That's their business. Now, I'll also let you know, most of them don't know their ass from a hole in the ground, but if you don't either, you're at least going to get a starting point as to where you're at. And then you can seek a second opinion and more information. But just raise your hand and ask for help. Someone will help you, period.
Yeah, Jordan said you'll miss 100% of the shots you don't take, right? So, interestingly enough, some of the garbage content that I've come across in my research is content that says exactly what you're saying, Chris. People's household balance sheets are in trouble. Their personal finances are in trouble. They are in jeopardy. Recession, inflation, interest rates, the whole nine. But the difference is you flat out say, this is what I would do. You flat out say, if you're in this position, I don't know how to help you. You flat out say the truth. And what they say is, it's okay. You're not the only one. It's happening to everybody.
If I never want to be part of the herd, and if everybody else is doing it, then I'm probably going to take the opposite position. And I can tell you, and I know you get this too. If I had a dime for every time someone reached out to me for me to market their product or affiliate with them or sell some bullshit course, if I had a dime for every time I got one of those opportunities, I'd be a bazillionaire. I refuse to do that unless I absolutely 1000% believe in the product and use it myself. And thus far, I haven't found anything that lines up with what I believe, what I stand for, and what I find value in. And I know you're the same.
The other one I wanted to share with you was I did a video on this. I touched on it briefly. I've been looking at a lot of businesses and retail and the banks. And I made this connection yesterday between Bank of America and Walmart. And it's not just these two, but Bank of America obviously is not, a shadow bank or ghost bank or phantom bank or what was the term you used exactly?
Zombie
Bank. Okay. But the bank, this bank, other banks, the Fed, U.S. Treasury, everyone's concerned about these banks and their unrealized losses.
Oh, yeah.
These paper losses that they have been shifting around their financial statements in ways that they can strategically do that, kicking the can down the road as long as possible, but it's about to come to a head.
Well, that's exactly what happened during the last crash, right? The banks were undercapitalized because they weren't marking to market, and they were doing all kinds of games that they were playing with unrealized losses. And we're seeing the exact same thing happen today. The thing that's most terrifying, and I don't mean to cut you off here, I just don't want to forget what I was going to say. That the auto repo market it has exploded. People can't afford their cars anymore, so they're being repossessed by the banks or the lenders or the institutions. Those institutions have yet to realize the losses on billions of dollars of vehicles and loans. They're sitting in warehouses, just not collecting dust at this point. When they are forced, because the government at some point will do just like what they did the last time, they will make the banks, because the banks will be about to fail again. And part of the terms and conditions of the bailout will be, you must recapitalize the bank in however we say so. And we're already starting to see banks up their balance sheets, up their cash positions. They're going to be recapitalized. They're going to need to be recapitalized. But the reality of it is, it's going to at some point be, there's going to be 1000% a liquidity crisis within the banking system, and they're going to need to be bailed out. So again, I'm calling it here. I called it a year ago. It's 1000% predictable. These banks, the ones you just referenced, they're all, forget about too big to fail. The world is too big to fail. And
you want to make it even worse?
What's that?
Was it GM CEO? Was it Mary Barra? And, she just came out the other day and said that, there's no way that they're going to meet their EV vehicle goals. Obviously, the strike has a huge impact on that. Honda has come out and cut ties with GM, saying that we can't make affordable EV vehicles. It's obvious. But bigger than that is how these automotive manufacturers, the big three really, Ford, Stellantis, GM, they're taking it on the chin with these negotiations for these union workers.
Oh yeah.
So you got the banks in trouble with these repossessed cars. You got the automotive manufacturers in trouble with everything pretty much. They're about to feel that pain pretty drastically. But when you add on top of that the fact that cars are too expensive, people can't afford to buy them, the interest rates are too high, and the dealerships are sitting on a ton of inventory borrowed from these manufacturers because they've got a floor plan and a financing deal, but the manufacturer still owns the vehicle.
Right.
They're going to have to take them back from the dealership. Like, this is about to implode.
Right. And meanwhile, thank you, Joe Biden, because the economy is so great, right? Bidenomics is a massive win. The unions that are negotiating for the workers are pointing to the economic data that the government has already put out, which is so great. Rose-colored glasses, everything is, it's never been better. Well, the unions are using that to leverage, to negotiate for their workers, which the banks and the institutions and the whoever, their balance sheets are hemorrhaging cash. They're at massive risk. They have no leverage because Biden has taken it away from them. And so what do we have? We're going to have the unions that will likely win, the workers that will likely make more money. And what will that do? It will bankrupt the people that they were the corporation that they were working to solicit that money from. So be careful what you ask for because you might get it.
And lastly, my tie from the banks to Walmart is obviously the banks, they don't want to cause any real panic. For instance, Silicon Valley Bank, First Republic, when the banks start having money problems and the public becomes aware of their money problems, that's when you have big problems. But Brian Moynihan and Jamie Dimon, they're going to be far more strategic with how they go about their plan, even though Jamie Dimon is selling, I can't remember how many millions in shares that his family owns of JP Morgan Chase, which is a key warning sign for so many reasons. Despite what they may tell you and what mainstream media may print or tell you on screen. But Walmart is no different. And Walmart has been exposed, and these other retailers have been exposed as well, which is going to have another impact on jobs. And it's not just AI taking over jobs and technology and robots. We have a problem and we're trying to mask it, but we can't keep this charade up for too much longer. And it's not theft that's causing these companies to have such dire straits and financial problems. It's the fact that product and inventory is sitting on the shelves. It's going stale. They're paying on it. They're not seeing the turns that they previously had seen before. They're going into the red, and the consumer can't save them because the consumer doesn't have any money.
Because you're right. They don't have any money. They're just buying it on credit. But so this is interesting, and I kind of in line with what you just said. So you saw the fires in Hawaii that were obviously devastating, right? We've had all these we've had hurricanes here in Florida that wiped out different cities and different areas. And recently, Farmers Insurance left the state, which everyone is pointing to. A lot of content creators are pointing to as, oh my gosh, another insurance company left Florida. And it's true, Farmers did leave Florida. But Farmers is also the number one ESG insurance company that there is. So they're in bed with the World Economic Forum. They have an agenda. And I think the reason that they left is because Governor DeSantis told them to suck it and they left. But they didn't just leave Florida. They're also not in any other coastal state or area, which is high risk. So it's the fact that Farmers left is not really the end of the world. Another insurer will come in. But I'm also then seeing that they're talking about the net outflow of people from Florida is at an epidemic proportion. All these people came in during the pandemic and now they're leaving hand over fist. They can't get out fast enough. And the reality of it is that's just a total bullshit number. The net inflow, the net migration into Florida is still number one in the country. So although there are some people that are leaving Florida because it's not right for everybody, the net inflow into Florida is still higher than any other state in the country. I believe Texas is number two, and the last one on the list.
Well, Texas's inflow is coming from the south.
Right, exactly. That's where the Hamas terrorists come in, so they can come in and develop the country.
God, dog.
And I got news for you. So I don't know if you watched this at all, but you mentioned PBD earlier. He interviewed Ron DeSantis yesterday for an hour, and I did a video where I mockingly interviewed Ron DeSantis, and it went over like a fart in church as far as the analytics and watch time. In fact, I got a lot of hate for it, but. I am of the mindset that I can detach from everything when I'm analyzing a politician or really anything. I go in open-minded. I want to learn. I let go of my preconceived notions about whatever, but frankly, I'm very curious as to what DeSantis has to say for an hour, because he's never once been interviewed for an hour by somebody like PBD. I would have given my right arm to be able to have that opportunity. And I think I'd look good. I would probably look good with a hook for Halloween if that ever happened. But different story for a different day. Anyway, he went on to talk, and he was asked some very aggressive type questions. What I will tell you, my takeaway from the conversation is this: he is a true patriot. He is a true American patriot, and he believes in certain values. Doesn't mean I agree with his value system, but in many of the things that he does believe, I happen to align with a lot of them. I was incredibly impressed by his position, his leadership, and his ability to discuss Donald Trump at a high level. And what he basically said was, because I doubt most people are going to take an hour to watch that video, although we might talk for an hour as we keep going. The thing that most impressed me is he said, look, this is not about me. This is not about Donald Trump. This is not about, Gavin Ross in California. This is not about Joe Biden. This is not about any one individual. This is about putting America and American people first, putting America in a position to win. And that's the only thing that I'm interested in doing. And if you can't line up and respect a guy like that, well, then I can't help you.
I do believe that if Ron DeSantis, and I'm running out of battery here, so I got to make this quick. I do believe that if Ron DeSantis were to be in that position, he could potentially rub so many people the wrong way by doing what needs to be done rather than lying to them and coddling them, which would then prevent him from continuing on beyond the first 4 years.
Well, my belief is right now we need strong leadership. We need people who can hold others accountable. We need to have the balls that the old school Americans used to have. We need work ethic, we need values, and we need to commit to doing whatever is necessary to empower America. And that doesn't mean you ignore the rest of the world. It doesn't mean you do anything. There's lots of things that you don't do, but it's time to get back to being a leader. It's time to get back to being accountable. It's time to get back to core values of being an American. And I'm proud to be an American. And I was at Disney this past week. I saw so many folks who seemed not to be. It made me sick, but that's a different conversation for a different day. And I know you got to go. So
I can't, honestly, you say proud, I say lucky. It's like you got to think about other people and the lives that they have to live, that it's not their choice. And we were born into this. We were lucky, you know?
I'll say it differently because you know what? When I say the term proud these days, it doesn't mean the same thing as what I meant it to mean when I said it. And I'm glad that you did bring up lucky. I'll say it differently. We are blessed beyond measure to have been born into this country when we were born into this country. And we have a responsibility to ensure, and my belief is, we have a responsibility to ensure that the next generations have the same opportunities that we had too. That's my core belief.
Agreed. All right. So real quick, my last two, just following up on what you had said earlier. Number one, if you don't think that all these insurance companies are working together, you are out of your mind. To see farmers evacuate and leave Florida, and then State Farm, double down, it's like, come on, guys. Do you not realize what they're doing?
Oh, let me jump in real quick before I forget. So yeah, you're 100% right. But know what else no one's talking about? So you've got the insurance companies, right? And of course, they're going to take a financial loss if they're not capitalized the right way and a tragedy hits. But what nobody's talking about is the reinsurance market. The reinsurance market are the insurers that insure the insurance market, the primary market. And every single thing that happens anywhere in the country impacts the price of insurance everywhere. So yes, it's more expensive to get insurance here in Florida for obvious reasons that we've covered in many other videos. But every time the insurance company's insurance, which is called reinsurance, anytime they pay out, it becomes more expensive for them to buy that reinsurance. And so shit rolls downhill. The insurance nightmare that's in Florida is inflating everywhere. And I'll tell you what's going to happen. Another prediction, bold prediction. I'll tell you what's going to happen. The government's going to step in and bail that out too, period. But my question now is, where are they getting the money?
Oh my God. The answer to that should be on, obviously there is no real solid answer for that, but that would be a great conversation.
Taxpayers.
Well, I know that, but how is going to be the interesting way of how they spin it this time. You see what I'm saying?
Yeah.
And that would be a great conversation for another podcast. The other one that I wanted to mention was something you had talked about earlier on in our conversation. And, people who ask you questions, who aren't necessarily ready. They're asking you financial advice and investment and real estate, housing market questions. And I think that in part, they want you to provide them with the simplest and easiest solution that they can do right now with zero effort and no risk. But when your answer is get in early, invest for the long term, be patient, compound interest, time in the market is greater than time in the market. Those are things that they're not interested in hearing.
You know what they want? They want an easy button. You remember the easy button?
They go to Office Depot or go to Staples or something.
Yeah, they want a life easy button, but unfortunately there is no such thing. Although one last story, I went to, as you know, I had a little bit of issues with my vehicle. I had to get it serviced.
Uh-huh.
And because of that, I went online and did a little bit of car shopping, just playing around. And I went as far as getting the approval and all that kind of stuff, which even though I knew I was going to get 1,000 phone calls from salesmen, I was willing to do it. But there is an easy button. This is how scary it is. I could have bought any vehicle I wanted by pressing a button, and it would be delivered to me very quickly if I didn't have the restraint and discipline not to. And when I tell you I was so horny to hit that button and buy a new car, you have no idea.
Dude, if we talk about it on another video, dude, I've owned, I think, almost 40 different vehicles, right?
Yeah.
And many of which a lot of people would be like, I would love to have had any of these cars. But when I tell you that there is some strange endorphin in some sort of high that comes from buying a car, I'm not joking.
I can tell you, whatever that high was, I was high as a kite. I was ready to hit that button. But then I also realized it would be it would be stupid because I'm not right to buy something on impulse without actually me doing what I just said, which is having total clarity on my financial position would be stupid. So I restrained myself. But also, I love the in-person experience of negotiating with salesmen. Nothing makes me happier.
Especially when they're so hungry and they need the tables have turned. It's a buyer's market when it comes to cars. I'm losing my battery, but
Yeah.
they can't play the games like they used to. I gotta cut it short, Chris.
All right, let's cut it short. Great talking to you. And until next time, peace.